Wall Street's obsession with AI in 2024 has spurred a huge demand in power, lifting the utility sector to outperform the broader market index. Names like Constellation and Vistra have helped fuel some of those gains. The latter stock has even outperformed AI darling Nvidia so far this year. Next guest, seeing some room to run within the sector, we want to bring in Durgesh Chopra. He is Evercore ISI's managing director covering power and utilities. Durgesh, it's great to have you here. So walk us through this call that you had out earlier this week. You still see utility sector. You upgraded this sector, seeing some of those gains broadening. Where is that growth going to come from, and what does it look like?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Look, so when you look up at the index, which is the U2I, a majority of that is driven by IPPs, independent power producers, and diversified companies, which are also power producers. The regulated traditional utilities, 28 of the 30 stocks that we cover have actually lagged the market. So our call is, yes, IPPs will continue to work. Independent power producers, that is, we're pretty bullish. But broadly speaking, regulated utilities, these traditional utilities, just like you saw yesterday, will outperform the market. Now, why are we saying that? First, it's a really attractive valuation backdrop. Utilities are trading just about an average on an absolute basis, 15-year average. When I think about PE, on a forward price to earning versus the market, it's a 20% discount. But here's what's critical versus bond yields, and this hasn't happened in a while. Our house view is yields go 60 bips, 70 bips lower into the first half of 2025. If you plot that in our bond regression model, utilities for the first time in 24 months are trading at parity with bond yields. So the valuation setup is pretty attractive. You combine that with improving fundamentals. What do I mean by that? Lower inflation, lower rates, electricity demand like we've never seen before. That's a great setup for utilities, and we expect the group to outperform into the first half of 2025. IPPs still win, but utilities win more broadly.
So, Durgesh, it's interesting. I noticed that the earnings of chip companies not necessarily in that list there. So it makes me wonder, is it nuclear specifically that is driving further gains to the upside for utilities in your view, or is it AI kind of generally? Which of those?
I think it's the latter. It's the AI kind of generally. I think nuclear is definitely part of the mix, but think about it this way. Any forecast you pick on electricity data demand, AI is projected to add 50 to 60 gigawatts in the next 5 years, right? I added up this morning all the announcements that we made on small modular reactors, plus nuclear plants coming online. That's like 4 gigs. So we're going to need more renewables, we're going to need more gas, we're going to need more utilities.
Durgesh, talk about policy implications of this. And when we think about what this could ultimately mean if there were to be a change in the White House come November, could that be bullish for the sector? How should investors then be preparing for that and the specific impact it's going to have on utilities?
Yeah, so historically, that's a great question. Historically, utilities have kind of traded bullish in this democratic bucket because the historical growth cadence for the sector has been transition into renewable generation, i.e. reducing carbon emissions. That has changed drastically, right? Now we're talking about economic development. We're talking about top line electricity demand growth. So whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Kamala Harris, I think the policy backdrop is going to be very supportive. Investors do think about under a Republican regime, sort of a full sweep scenario, whether the Inflation Reduction Act gets taken back. We think that's a low probability. Ultimately, I think either one of those is going to be pretty supportive because all this is needed to supercharge the economy. And I think that's a great setup. The stocks might be volatile going into election here in the next few weeks, but if they lag, we think it's a buying opportunity.
And Durgesh, let's talk about some specific names here, and Constellation comes to mind in particular, and then we'll get to some of your best ideas. I'm curious, how material is the restart of something like 3 Mile Island to future gains for a company like Constellation?
Yeah, so look, high level, the return on investment on that project is about 30%. That's massive. An average utility return on investment is around 10 to 15. So it's really massive. We think it's 10, 15% value accretive. So the stock was up 10, 13% following the announcement. We think that's totally fair. I'm pretty bullish on Constellation because this is just upside from plant that they're bringing online. They have 22 gigs worth of nuclear. We think there's high probability. A big chunk of that gets contracted at elevated prices with these data centers. So that's the upside on Constellation. And we're really bullish. Even after the rally it's had, we think there's a tremendous amount of upside in EBITDA, cash flow, earnings numbers.
So outside of your bullish outlook for Constellation, are some of our viewers out there trying to figure out how to play this space? What are some of your best ideas then going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, so I think bullish on IPPs, bullish on regulated utilities. One portion of the market is renewable companies, which has been completely left out with the interest rate yields going up over the last 2 years, right? Electricity demand is really bullish for renewable names, right? All providers and renewable names in particular, because we're going to need more wind and storage. We're going to need more solar and storage. AES is a company which trades at 8 times 26 earnings, has materially lagged the market year to date, has lagged for the last 2 years. I think that's where you go.
I know you've got a couple of other names there, but Durgesh, I am just curious for investors listening in who are seeing some of the gains here in the companies that you're referencing, and also a company like Vistra outpacing NVIDIA. How can they suss out kind of whether they've missed a little bit of the optimism rally in some of these names versus some of the other great ideas that you have, where there might be continued movement to the upside and a chance to get in early?
Yeah, look, I mean, IPPs, the independent power producers, specifically Constellation is one of them, Vistra is one of them, NRG that we cover. They've gone up dramatically. PSCNG is another nuclear name. The regulated utilities have been left behind. The three names on the list, DTE, NiSource, PPL, are regulated utilities. NiSource and PPL are top performers this year. So the way I would think about this is, look, for the regulated utilities group, when you think about valuation, the market isn't really pricing in any of this growth. They're trading at absolute valuation, which is in line with 15-year average. So that's a buy for me. For the IPPs, again, yeah, they've gone up. You look at the screen, it's like, hey, is it too late? No, because underlying EBITDA, cash flow, earnings numbers are still biased higher. So I remain pretty bullish in both categories.
All right, Durgesh, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.